I have a new obsession.
I can't hear you. Really?
I have this keyboard duster that I bought for cleaning the dust. And what I've discovered is it's really handy at cleaning like all sorts of other things. It just, the dust flies away. It's amazing. In fact, it's dust off.
It's also handy. Yeah, it's also handy. Like, it's just a duster. Yeah, I'm just gonna demonstrate that this is invented a long time ago, right? Let me just bite that off.
This is so anti-consultant. Consultants tell people how to solve their problems. They don't actually go clean things up on their own. They tell other people how to clean up their messes. They don't actually clean up messes. That's not consultative.
We were just talking about dust off for all your cleaning.
Wonderful. Perfect.
I don't know if any of us are qualified to give mental health advice.
That stopped us before.
Yes. Exactly. Good point.
Oh my God.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. I'm Chris Lockhart, joined by Oliver Cronk, Phil Yanoff, Wendy Keene. Today, we wanted to talk about somebody that I know I've been dealing with a lot recently. I know a lot of others have, with the return to sort of, hybrid working, back in in-person, face-to-face, I think is what I was trying to say. Communications and engagements, right? There are new levels, new modes of stress that are descending on us and on me. And so, we wanted to talk a little bit about mental resilience, right? And talk about that, especially now. There's a lot going on in the world. The work patterns continue to shift. A lot of folks are going through a lot of things. There's economic issues, right? All of these things are additive to levels of stress. And how do consultants deal with that? We wanted to give some tools and some anecdotes and some practices maybe that we've picked up over time and along the way. So, Phil, I know you articulate things so well, Phil, right? So.
Hi, I'm Phil.
Yeah. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind giving us a 2-minute view on this.
Well, I think this is a great topic for all times, right? And yes, we might be feeling stressed out now, but the thing is, why does resilience matter is because we've got lots going on and we want you to feel capable and competent and able to get those things done, even when we have the variety of setbacks we might have in our lives, right? So there's all kinds of environmental things that are going on, and we might have picked up some bad habits even, when we were younger. And that's one of those things that might just be showing themselves up now. Why does resilience matter? Listen, if you are feeling tired every day, if you are feeling like you don't have the energy in order to get things done, one of the things that might be happening, all the physical stuff aside, right? But one of the things that might be happening is that you are lacking resilience in the moment. I mean, if you find yourself yelling at folks in traffic because of the way it's happening, or snapping at a coworker, probably none of those are productive behaviors, but they are, in fact, some indicators that you might be wanting to build up your resilience so that you can take things and bounce back. That's what resilience means, right? Bouncing back in the face of adversity. We want you to bounce back because we think you're good at what you do. And sometimes things get a hold of us and keep us from being at our best. So how can we fix that?
And of course, we should rush to add, of course, that this is in no way meant to be a clinical session. If folks need actual help, right, they should go and get that help from an actual registered professional. So please don't take this as any of us are mental health experts. But I know Oliver, you've done some thinking on this too.
Yeah, and actually, I'll echo the whole getting professional help thing as well. I went through a bit of a journey of enlightenment about mental health probably about 5 years ago. And I was kind of pushed by a couple of colleagues actually, to get professional help because they cared about me, and they knew I was struggling to sort of deal with as much as I thought, I was self-aware and, very much mindful of how I was coming across to others. They recognized I needed some help because I was struggling. And it was related to a step up in my career. I was kind of managing a lot more people than I ever had and had a lot more responsibility. And they said, Oliver, you just need to go and, get your head sorted out. And I think the best way to do that is to get some professional help. And they did it out of the kindness of their own heart. And I have to thank them because, I think I was just trying to muddle along on my own. So I would echo the point. If folks listen to this and feel they need to talk, don't hold back from doing that. It can be scary. For me, it was a massive scary thing, like to actually open up and talk to someone professionally. But yeah, no. So for me, I think I've gone through waves of this one. I think changing career, changing role, changing level of seniority is often quite challenging. You want to kind of push yourself, you want to have a growth mindset, but sometimes that can come at a bit of a personal cost. You kind of putting yourself out of your comfort zone, way out of your comfort zone. Sometimes can be quite hard to, and as Phil just said, often the stresses come out in different ways. For me, it was coming out at home too much. I was kind of getting angry at home because I was very professional, put a very professional face on at work, and then would perhaps let my guard down at home, which wasn't acceptable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's your family. And oh, by the way, it's your clients, right? You're not servicing your clients if you're upset. I mean, Wendy, do you think consultants in particular are more at risk for this? I mean, in the normal times when you're doing all this traveling and you're, there's that stress. We haven't been doing that so much, but it adds a new kind of stress, right? And we've talked about this before, right? Like, before the meeting might end 5 minutes before, so you could stop by the cafeteria to get a cup of coffee before you go walk to the next meeting. Now it's just like bam, 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 straight, like from 8 to 6 at night. That's a different kind of stress. I mean, are consultants more susceptible to this?
I do think so, and for a variety of reasons. One is perhaps the personalities that are drawn to consulting are very driven. We're in many cases competitive environments with high expectations on hours, delivery, what we're able to take on, how we might want to rise to the top, delivering to clients. So I do think the environment and the nature of consultants makes us more susceptible, which is also good for us to reflect on, knowing that, what can consulting firms do to make sure that we're supporting each other. Oliver, you gave a great example of that, but also structuring engagements and structuring culture in a way that fosters, I think, wellness as well.
Brilliant. Let me just stop with that right there. I just think that's a great insight in that, structuring our work environment, and we're not trying to lead you down the path of experiential avoidance. Everyone's there to teach you a thing. But in that space, you got to say, all right, I got to have my boundaries. In order to perform well, here's where I need these boundaries to be. And that means, and whatever it is for you, right? You're not going to be calling me during these hours, or I'm not going to be answering my phone at this time, or whatever the rules are that you need in order to recharge your battery so that you can be fully present when you're active on the thing. You need to be doing that. And I think it can feel really difficult, right? Particularly when you're new, the relationships are new. And, a lot of times people don't want to establish those boundaries up front. But I think it's completely okay to look at a client or a boss and say, look, I want to deliver at 100% for you. And for me, that means I'm going to need a couple of things. And I'm hoping this is okay. Let's figure that out up front before we get started. And this is what I need.
Yeah. I'll give you an example that I've been dealing with a lot lately, and that is, Monday morning, I open my laptop, I go into Outlook, and I look at my calendar, and I've got like 8 meetings simultaneous every 30-minute block, like the entire day, like all unaccepted, right? All tentative, because and I look at that and I'm just like, okay, like, do I need to block my time? Is that the boundary that I need to set? Or do I need to reject meetings? Do I need to decline them and say, no, I'm eating lunch during this whatever, this period of time? What do you think, Oliver?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Chris, right? Because I was doing the tentative thing for a while, and then I've had a coaching recently from someone say, no, stop doing the tentative thing. You're either available for something or you're not, and just be decisive and say no. I think the problem I suffer from, and I think probably we all do on this call, is we like to help people, and we kind of like to support others, but actually by sort of being tentative, in case, and then reason for that, I'm sure you're similar, is in case something else kind of gets cancelled, right? Oh, that thing got cancelled, which means I can pick up that other thing. And they're like, no, just be more decisive. It's either yes or no.
Or it could be even worse, Oliver. It's the thing where it's like, oh, well, I'll drop into this meeting for 10 minutes and then this meeting for 10 minutes and then this meeting for 10 minutes. And I can cover 3 meetings, that sort of thing.
And I think going back to the mindfulness thing, I think that Phil just talked about, I think that for me, I think is a superpower. If you can be truly mindful, and this is what I try and practice, of course, it's hard, isn't it, to be mindful, but that whole thing about, right, you've got me that time, I'm going to be fully focused and in the moment, like this recording now, like I'm fully focus as much as I can be on this conversation, or if it's a client engagement, you've got me for the 30 minutes or the hour. And that in order to do that, though, you do need those buffers. And I think that's what's been so challenging about this hybrid and remote world is bang, straight on the hour, straight into the next thing. And there's like no downtime to kind of like process or even take notes of actions or something before you're straight into the next thing.
Or do work.
Yeah.
But, if you're in meetings from, 7 a.m. through 6 p.m., when do you do the work, right? When you're on the road, you go back to the hotel, you sit with your laptop and have dinner, and then you go back to the room. And I used to watch Shark Tank in the background, till 2 a.m. working on slides, right? And then you go back to the thing at, the next morning. But like I'm at home. So when I close that laptop at night, I got 5 other people out there expecting me to come out and be dad and husband and all that sort of stuff, right? And so I can't be working on slides till 2 a.m. when I'm every day. That's crazy, right?
I really like this idea of boundaries. Starting this year, I've wherever possible, I've actually cleared the calendar on Mondays to do work. Otherwise, my work time is, to your point, Saturday and Sunday. I've also seen people scheduling 45-minute meetings, and that gets ingrained in the culture so that you have 15 minutes to shift and you're not, sort of running between meetings. So some other good ideas, I think, as well.
Talking of culture, though, we were talking before we hit the record button about the culture of checking calendars, like this culture of being courteous of other people's time. Like just I think unfortunately with me, sometimes it gets to the point where I'm busy a few weeks out in advance. And so people go, do you know what? I don't know where, he doesn't look free at any time. So I'm just going to shove it in this hour here. And it's like, well, that's not very helpful, And I think just promoting a culture of being respectful of other people's time and other people's schedules, is
let me just say to that bit, and Oliver, changing a culture is really tough. You almost always, when you're trying to figure out how to build resilience, that's the thing you're doing for you, right? And so you got to figure out what it is you're going to do in your environment. I mean, you can ask others to say this is this thing and that thing, but I think, as we figure out what we're going to do for ourselves, we have to realize this is what I need. This is what I'm going to do. And if I don't do it, I'm not going to be doing my best work. I'm going to be snapping at my kids and my wife and husband or whatever, all that stuff at home, or yelling at my dog who really doesn't deserve it. All this kind of stuff that goes on. And I think, so if you're doing a self-assessment in the beginning of this, it's like, okay, how would I rate myself in the beginning? How am I doing right now? So, that's a thing I've kind of, in terms of a coping mechanism, that's a thing I've taught myself, is to realize when I'm in fact stressed out and not being resilient, so that I know to take corrective actions on it. Because if you don't realize it, you just go, and the problem is behavior becomes normalized, right? In certain environments, just snapping at others and being ugly and difficult and antisocial, that just is some places a norm, and that's no good for you and no good for them.
That's exactly right. And when you and I did Mastermind a couple of years ago, one of the things I thought was useful in that process, right, is you come into and this was a a peer-based coaching type environment, and you come in and you basically say, how am I doing right now on a scale of 1 to 10, right? If you're under 5, you got to change some stuff, right? And I think it's useful in identifying, well, why is that? Why are you angry? Why are you stressed out? Is it because I have too many meetings? Is it because like what I have someone on one of my teams, and he came to me and he said, listen, first of all, I was like, you're doing an amazing job. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. But he's like, I'm stretched too thin and I feel like I'm dropping balls. In other words, I'm not doing my best work. Right. And now I don't think that was perceived from the outside at all, but that person's feeling that way, that impacts their brain chemistry, right? And levels of various hormones and things like that. And, all of the things related to how the brain works. So, I mean, I think there is this, how do I make space for myself kind of thing so that I don't get overwhelmed.
And, we just did this. I went through this very mastermind exercise this morning, right? It's the call I had before this one. And you get numbers that are all over the place. This morning, as low as a 6. And the issues are exactly the same thing we're talking about right now, right? I feel exhausted. I am not systematically getting this heuristic work done. Everything feels like I've left everything on the field and then some, right? And I'm working till late. So I just think those, once having established what those parameters or what those things are, what are the symptoms of being low in resilience, I think we ought to talk about what are some things we can do for ourselves that kind of build that back up, right? How do we get to be resilient? There's a bunch of stuff out there. Things we've tried.
For me, a lot of this comes back to physical health and mental health. I think are quite closely aligned, right? And for me, if I'm not exercising reasonably regularly and making time for that, as much as sometimes it can feel quite selfish and indulgent to carve out an hour or two, it's important because it boosts your brain chemistry and gets you back in the right headspace, or at least does for me anyway. So I think certainly control mechanism for me, a kind of release valve, if you will, is going out and doing a run or cycling for me. And it has been for a long time. And I know I'm in fact, my wife has got to the point where she actually sends me out on my bike sometimes at the weekend. Like, you just need to go
and locks the door, right?
Yeah. She's like,
time for Oliver to go out and play. Go, get out of the house.
We don't want you here because you're horrible. Go out on your bike and then hopefully you'll be better when you come back.
Yeah.
Wendy, how do you deal, Wendy? Because you're traveling transatlantic a lot, right? You're doing lots of workshops. I know you're really busy. How do you deal with that level of stress and stay resilient?
Yeah, I think the mindset's a big part of it. And I'll point to a book or TED Talks that many people probably know from Carol Dweck on mindsets. And people with a fixed mindset tend to see their sets of qualities and attributes and abilities as fixed. So, just trying to have to prove ourselves, or I'm going to say in my case, like trying to be perfect, getting everything exactly right, avoiding challenges and feedback and maybe feeling threatened by others. And so if you have a fixed mindset, you don't meet your potential, but those with a growth mindset, and those maybe, again, I'm going to stretch it and say, knowing it doesn't have to be perfect. We're always like a work in process. And if we see that new challenges make us better, we're always on the journey, it's worth the effort, really learning from others and immersing that you can achieve more and reach your potential. So I think the mindset's huge. From my own perspective as well, taking really long physical journeys has helped my mindset, whether it's a long ultra marathon or mountain. I realize the peace and the patience in one step at a time. Like, I'm going to get where I'm going, but I'm going to get there one step at a time, and that is okay. And sometimes there are setbacks. Sometimes you go back down to a lower camp on the mountain, but if I have a setback, I know that in some way it's preparing me for the next thing to go higher on the next round.
Is it as simple as, you've got time, you've got scope, you've got cost, right? Is it as simple as adjusting those variables, or is it more complex than that? Because I can reduce scope, right? I can quit, right? but it's like, is it that simple? Because it seems like those are the three things that are always people are asking too much of all the time. Right. And, if you
inside your own parlance, right? Isn't it the issue is we've allowed our professional lives to so much scope creep without calling back on it, right? We didn't claw it back. And I think that's a thing. We're not protecting the asset, which is a thing I'm telling people all the time, right? If you're going to be Wendy or Oliver, you're going to go out and run, or or walk, or whatever, or bike, or whatever it might be for you. But I mean, and of course, getting enough sleep, and I think that was in all of that. But if you're not getting the sleep you need, I mean, this is a terrible thing for your mind and your body. It's hard to be performing at grade level, even if you're not sleeping.
Yeah, no, I have an example of that, very recent actually. So the last time I snapped was because I'd gone a week really without sleeping properly. Anxiety about my first international trip, going to a new part of the world I'd never been to before, and then changing time zone and jet lag, and just badly planning my travel. In all honesty, arriving at your hotel at 10 to 2 in the morning, only then to have to get up at 6:30 to give a presentation at 9 a.m. is not good, right? I mean, that was partly because the flight was delayed, but I probably should have allowed for that a little bit. But it broke me, and I should have known that sleep is my Achilles heel. And then unfortunately I find you get into a pattern where once you're out of the sleep pattern, you then struggle to get back into the rhythm of sleep, right? So I think sleep and exercise are super important sort of balancing factors. But I like, Phil, what you're saying about protecting the asset, kind of, and actually sometimes just feeling like you should do more. I want to do the next thing. I want to kind of prove my value, my worth. And the problem there is if you take on too much, you end up sort of, as Nathan Olchin, who's been a guest on this series before, said to me, Oliver, you're not Captain Margarine, stop. And he says that because, you can spread margarine really thin, right? So he's making the joke about that, but he's right. You kind of have to sort of set those boundaries, as we said, and sort of, this is what I can achieve. I can put a stretch target in, but what am I saying no to by saying yes to something else?
But how do people know that, right? Because consultants, I think, especially come up saying, no, we can. You want that? Yes, we got it. We can do that. What expert in Oracle? Done, right? We can do anything. Give us enough money and time. We can do anything, right? So how do you identify and set those boundaries?
Teach yourself to say no, right? I mean, a bit around the bound. I mean, it was exactly what you said, Chris, and you know this, right? The thing is, you're in your spot. You've got to prove a thing. You say yes to everything. And at some point you realize, oh my God, I really can't do that. Or I can do that, but it's going to require super heroic effort. And no one cares. They just need it done on some regular time frame. So let's get it done on whatever that regular time frame is. But I think a technique you've got to develop is figure out where your own boundaries are. You've got to be able to look at someone and say, I don't see me doing that. That is not in the cards for me and you together. Not going to happen.
Being brave enough to say no is hard, I think. It
is.
Yeah, but I think it's key to resilience. I think if you just continue to say, yeah, so I think although the growth mindset that Wendy points out is really, really important, but I think it's that balance, isn't it, of looking for the opportunities where you can learn and grow, but not overwhelming yourself by saying yes too much.
Yeah. One of the things that we do when we're helping people build resilience is to help them figure out that they're saying yes to things that do not, in fact, align with their values, right? And so there are things that are really important to them. I care about the environment, or I care about being pro-social, or I care about doing things in a particular way, with honesty and virtue, whatever they might be, whatever the values are for you. And I'm not prescribing that, but you've got values. And if day after day, you're being called upon to do things that are outside that value set, to sacrifice the things that are in fact important to you, that just drains that battery, something fierce. And you end up in a spot where there's nothing left, because basically every time someone asks you to do something, your mouth is saying yes, and your brain is throwing a hissy fit over what's going on. And that is exhausting inside your head, right?
Yeah,
it's just exhausting.
Let's talk about exhausting for a second, right? I mean, I'm not young anymore. I mean, you all look great.
You still look young. Thank you.
Thanks. But that's only because I shaved. I was going to go have lunch with my daughter at school, and she said, "You can't come looking like an old man." So she made me shave my beard. Anyway, point is,
it's lunch with Abe Lincoln Day.
So, when I was younger, and I think a lot of young consultants experience this, you come into an environment where you're kind of like a number, right, in a large machine, and you do what you're told, and there's a hierarchy and all that stuff, right? And you're eager, and you want to impress, and you want to please, and you want to demonstrate what you can do, and all that stuff, which leads to those all night, sessions with laptops out, at the bar or wherever, creating materials and things like that. And you can do that for some period of time. And as you get older, that becomes less of something that you can do. And frankly, as you move up the ladder, you do less of that anyway, generally speaking, not always. But I remember one time in particular, it was late. It was crisis or whatever. I may have told this story already. I'll do it again. I'll edit it out.
Today, though.
Yeah, not today. It's all new. It's new. I was like, this is, what are we doing here? Senior partner. And he was like, well, you know what? We're not selling potatoes, right? They are paying us a lot of money, and you are being highly compensated. Let's get the work done, right? That sort of thing. And that has stuck with me for years, right? And so whenever there's a team member that's like, I've got all these other things doing, it's like, well, we're not selling potatoes, right? We are highly compensated people, and there's an output that's expected. Now, I think to the point that we're trying to make here is to deliver that thing and deliver it in the way that the client expects. You've got to architect your environment in a way that enables you to do that. So, I don't know what all those things are. And frankly, I don't even know if I know how to recognize, right, at my age, at my career, I'm not sure I always know how to recognize when I'm at the point where I need to do that. Right. Yeah. Lately, I've been finding, I'll be sitting here I'm like, oh my God, what a week it's been. And I look and it's like, oh, it's Monday at 11 a.m. Right. And in my mind, the week's over, right? Because it's been so exhausting, to Phil's point already.
Yeah.
I really like the given, the architecture background I have, but I like the kind of thought that you need the right architect. And I think that comes down to sort of a number of things we've talked about on other episodes, right? Like coaching and mentoring, having the right people you can kind of go to that you trust, that can help you in difficult times. But I guess also, if we look at that, foundational pieces of that architecture, we've already touched on some of them, right? Like appropriate rest, sleep, exercise. So some of these other pieces I feel like are foundational to that kind of, and then you can kind of layer other things on top of it. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because there's a chap, Gavin, who we may talk to. He and I have spoken about this sort of architecture of business mental health. Like, what does it take to be a high performer? And there's mindset in there, there's mindfulness in there, there's the other things we've just talked about. So yeah, no, I definitely think that framework. And some people kind of just know this, innately. They just sort of seem to know how to kind of operate. I think others, like myself included, have had to actively kind of work out, well, what is it that makes me tick, and what are the things I need in order to be a high performer and continue to be a high performer, and not kind of constantly roller coaster, have good periods and then nosedive when things get too difficult.
Yeah, and as Wendy pointed out, right, there is science here, and I mean, none of us are really scientists, but maybe we're not qualified to speak on this topic. But right, Wendy, I mean, there was that TED talk you mentioned. I mean, there's other things here, right, about how the brain works, right, and it's not made up, right? It's not I feel bad. It's like, no, there's stuff happening that causes that, right?
Well, and just the bigger picture, as Phil said, protect the asset, the bigger picture of if you run something too much now, you don't have it in the big picture. I'm also a bit hopeful that over time, consulting firm culture and expectations will shift. We look at, all the challenges around staffing today. Different generations expect a little bit more balance, right? So I am hopeful, or value delivery, not necessarily just time and billing. So I'm hopeful there. I also think it's a good point that when you are a younger consultant, you're much less likely to say no and maybe put some of those boundaries up. I think particularly the senior folks, and I'll give an example of myself, they can really set the tone. So I do work a lot flying in the face of what we're saying here, but I always used to tell my team, I don't ever expect you to work as hard as I do. Not ever, not ever, not ever. I want you to take this day off. I want you to, have a normal life. But then they would say to me, yeah, but you're sending us emails at 2 and 3 in the morning. Like, you're doing it. So you're setting the tone. So yeah. I think, any individual, right, in position of leadership or even a peer can give others the permission and the inspiration to make their own boundaries as well.
Well, I mean, what your team members didn't know is that you actually wrote those emails at 7 p.m., but you scheduled them for a 2 or 3 a.m. delivery just to show the world that you're up all night working hard.
That were only true. Yeah.
All right. So there are tools, there are books, there are TED Talks, there are other things. Of course, and Oliver, you mentioned it, right? There's professionals. I think, we've given a lot of perspective on like our experiences and things like that as practitioners, but I think there's a follow-up here around what does a professional say about this? Maybe, so you said, what I heard is like, eat well, exercise. You left out my favorite one, which is maybe have a drink every now and then, right? There are ways to cope with this. Maybe there are other things at sort of a medical professional level that we were not, thinking of or seeing. I think we should probably follow up on that, because I think that could be really important, right?
It's interesting what you said about things like having a drink. I mean, there are escapisms. I think there are ways of coping with and being more resilient in a healthy way, and there are perhaps techniques that other people fall into that are unhealthy. Bad habits that people can pick up along the way. And I think it's a very stressful industry. And, people, I think, myself included, and there was a period where I escaped in sort of a parallel London world, right? I kind of had a home life and I had a London life, and it was a bit bizarre.
You were in the metaverse? You were in
no, it wasn't. This is pre-metaverse, right? But,
World of Warcraft, you were just out in World of Warcraft.
There's actually a game called Underground London, and I thought that's what he was talking about, right? It's like it's an alternate London environment.
Yeah,
but no.
If you've encountered Oliver lurking in the tube, Underground London, right? He's escaping. But this idea, it's resiliency, right? And the whole idea is we're coping with these. First of all, we got to identify that we need to deal with this. Then we got to deal with it, not because it's bad. It's a human thing to stress as part of our makeup, right? But it's all about bouncing back, right? And getting back to a point where you can execute and deliver until that bucket fills up again, right? Because there are probably superhumans out there that can go through their whole life where they manage this all the time at a level. I think most of us are probably like, yeah, I'm managing it really well. And then just it ticks up over time. And then, I throw a remote control or something like that. Right. And then it's like, now I got to deal with this. And now I deal with it. And then it ticks up over time. I don't know. That's a hypothesis. Maybe if we talk to some doctors, they'd be like, no, it's totally crap. Don't listen to Lockhart.
Yeah. I think this is what happens, right? And I love that example because I was just thinking about the cat that I watched throw his phone at an airport, right? And who knows what happened, but he just picked up an expensive phone and just threw it as hard as he could at the wall in an airport. And I was like, wow, something didn't go well there, right? But that was also, things are going to happen. How do we deal with it? And I think, this idea was to kind of give you some sense that there are, in fact, some tools and techniques to kind of get you started. I think I'd said before we got this thing started was I just did this as like a 10-part series in our group. There are people out there with really great training environments that are actually focused specifically on resilience. There is resilience training in the US military. That's part of the actual training regimen. So, there's lots of people out there that are doing important work and lots of stuff out there to read. But I think part of why we've decided this was useful is that we are, in fact, talking to people who are working in what can be stressful environments around people that might be modeling bad behaviors. And so in that space, it's kind of up to you to figure out what you need in order to get your own resilience built to where you want it to be. And know that there are tools and techniques and materials out there to kind of get you started on that journey.
I think that's a good place to put a coda on that, right? And call it. I don't need, and again, I think that was a really well put, Phil. I think, important, right? This is about getting back in the fight, right? And dealing with those things to get back to doing what you're doing. I really think this deserves a follow-up. And if we can find someone who's qualified, willing to discuss this with us, I think there's more here, right? Because I think it's an important thing. So listen, guys, thank you. I appreciate it. Wendy, I know you're in New York, so thank you for joining us from, bad internet connections and things of that nature. Right. But much appreciated. Oliver Cronk, Wendy Keene, Phil Yanoff. I'm Chris Lockhart. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk more about this coming up. Thanks.
Yeah.